Good evening. Welcome to the 2024 presentation of the Peter Bryce Prize. I'm Jim Turk, the director of the Center for Free Expression, and I'd like to welcome all of you to this event. Before going further, I would like to begin by acknowledging that the traditional territory in which I am speaking to you tonight is that of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and the Chippewa, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. I'd also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties with multiple Mississauga and Chippewa bands. The Center for Free Expression awards the Peter Bryce Prize annually to recognize and honor individuals who serve the greater public good and the good of society by courageously speaking up about wrongdoing and abuses of public trust. I'd like to introduce my colleague and CFE Senior Fellow, David Hutton, to tell you a bit about Peter Bryce and the Peter Bryce Prize. David?
Hello, Jim. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Now we see you too.
Right. So, yes, I want to say a few words about Peter Bryce. Dr. Peter Bryce was an early Canadian whistleblower who in 1907 spoke up about appalling public health conditions in the residential schools. Bryce was an eminent physician and an expert in preventive medicine and a leading figure in the creation of the first public health system here in Canada. In 1904, he became the medical inspector for the Department of Indian Affairs and began gathering information on the health of students in the residential schools. His findings revealed appalling mortality rates, with an average of 25% of students dying, mostly of TB, in conditions of deprivation and neglect. In one school, 69% of the students died. Bryce's findings became public, and this caused outrage, but the government's response was to deny and cover up the problem. The government did nothing to address the disease and neglect and did everything in its power to suppress Bryce's findings. We know now that the children's bodies were often buried in unmarked graves. Bryce's findings were also buried, and even the gathering statistics halted to conceal the magnitude of the problem. Bryce lost his career, his research work was blocked, and he was even excluded from professional associations. But he persisted and made it his life's work to expose the problems. In his 1922 pamphlet entitled "The Story of a National Crime," tells the story. Today, Bryce is recognized as a heroic figure, probably Canada's first whistleblower, and his grave in Ottawa has become a shrine for those who are carrying on the work of speaking up for the rights of Indigenous people. This award recognizes Dr. Bryce's outstanding courage, dedication, and integrity, and honors others who have come after him to speak up for the public good, regardless of the personal cost.
Thank you so much, David. It's now my pleasure to introduce the winner of the 2024 Peter Bryce Prize, Luc Sabourin. Welcome, Luc.
Hello, sir.
Mr. Sabourin has had a long career in the federal civil service, having had responsibilities for handling top secret documents within the Department of National Defense and subsequently in the Canada Border Services Agency. After moving to CBSA, Mr. Sabourin began to see and then expose serious wrongdoing within the agency, including the destruction of hundreds of passports that had been retained by the agencies within its secure area, as these passports were essential to investigations and prosecutions of individuals thought to be engaged in criminal activities. Mr. Sabourin also exposed efforts that had been made to hide this illegal destruction of passports. The hiding was by falsifying the agency's lost, stolen, fraudulent database, recording the destroyed passports as having been returned to the issuing agency. The reprisals against Mr. Sabourin for speaking out about the wrongdoing were bold and devastating. These included intense workplace harassment that led to a diagnosis of PTSD and his departure from the agency on medical leave. Harassment included many things, from putting hand sanitizer in his coffee, not enough to cause lasting harm, but as a potent warning as just to how vulnerable he was in that workplace. His life was also endangered by leaking his name and address to known mobsters, and CBSA refused to process his medical pension, which had been authorized by Health Canada in 2018. He only started receiving his pension in 2022 when members of Parliament began asking questions about his case. Unlike previous recipients of the Peter Bryce Prize, Mr. Sabourin's case is still continuing. We are delighted, Luc, that you are joining us this evening, and it's a pleasure to present you with the Peter Bryce Prize and the $10,000 cash award that accompanies it, that's made possible by the generosity of the Zita and Mark Bernstein Family Foundation. Now, since we're not in the same room together, we had the prize delivered to you. And if you could hold it up just so the audience could see it, we'd appreciate that. And you might just read us what it says. It's hard to see it with the screen through.
Says the Peter Bryce Prize 2024, Luc Sabourin, awarded for courage and integrity in bringing to the public's attention grave wrongdoing within the Canada Border Service agencies, despite facing serious ongoing reprisal.
Again, it is an honor for us to be able to present this to you this evening. And I'd invite you to speak on this occasion to all of our audience.
Thank you, sir. I am honored to receive this award. It's a testament to all individuals that come forward and face severe reprisal for speaking the truth. As a public servant of 26 years of experience, I mostly worked in operational environment for the federal government. I also worked as a licensed investigator in the private sector. I had a distinguished career handling top secret document within the National Defense Intelligence Unit from 1990 to 2001, around the events of September 11. In 2001, I was offered to join the Canada Immigration Enforcement that was later amalgamated to the Canada Border Service that had just been created. It was an amalgamation of custom and immigration together to create the agency. At the CBSA, I was the quality control operator of critical specific information into a federal database that would contribute in part to national and international security. More precisely, the lost, stolen, fraudulent database and the secure storage and tracking of passports, citizenship card, identity-related document that came into CBSA's attention and possession that could be used for traveling. My work with the LSFD directly supported all law enforcement agencies, domestically or internationally, especially when they needed to verify the validity of a document that could be used for traveling to Canada or internationally. As early as 2006, I was exposed to wrongdoing and criminal acts in the workplace. My observations were so significantly concerning that I advised management, and to my great surprise, I received no support for it. By 2009, I was overwhelmed by the seriousness and gravity of what I was witnessing, so I decided to contact the Office of Internal Disclosure and meet with them in a final attempt to try to rectify the situation. It did not take long for retaliation against me to manifest itself. I was directly and verbally confronted in my workplace by the individual that I actually reported on. Even though that meeting was supposed to be confidential and to protect me, somehow somebody advised management at my level, and that was very serious. I didn't realize that I was alone, nobody to report to my observation, since I had previously attempted to report this to the Office of Professional Standard, and with no avail. So what I started to do is I discreetly started keeping various records of events over the following years with supporting documentation should there ever be an investigation. I endure a first wave of administrative and psychological harassment by the actual management and the offending colleagues at the time. This lasted for a few years, and it included a requirement by management to me for a medical note permitting me to use the washroom more than twice a day. I also received threats to my person and against my children. At one point, for a while, I was having health issues, and we didn't really know what it was. And it was later determined that hand sanitizer had been placed in my coffee. We didn't know how long that had gone, but this was like a psychological game, right? So this was really, really wrong. And it escalated to serious sabotage and vandalism and destruction of my work. Management just stood still, did nothing. The retaliation against me was always escalating, and it was very severe in nature. It was taking its toll on me physically and emotionally, making it very difficult for the important detailed work that I was engaged in, where the mistake factor was very enormous and serious for consequences on the members of the public. The information that I input in this database makes the difference between a conversation for the officers and anybody that comes into the country that is a known criminal. So I can't make mistakes. So my sustained attention must be there. With all the other distractions that were happening in the background, this made it very difficult for me. By the virtue of their action, the offending individuals, with regards to the sabotage of my work, they actually place national security at risk, the international security at risk, and the credibility of the CBSA and the Canadian government. This is how serious this was. One female supervisor that tried to help me by denouncing this inappropriate conduct towards me faced severe reprisal by the senior management, and she subsequently lost her career in the process. This situation culminated in an extraordinary incident in 2015 when my colleague and I received an order from senior management to illegally destroy thousands of passports being held in our secure area. This was contrary to any policy or any rules that we had. We were also directed to falsify the federal secure tracking database by creating individual false record for each passport, recording the destroyed passport as having been returned to the issuing agency, some of them being our allies of the Canadian government. Again, this was very serious. This mass shredding would have assisted countless wanted criminals by destroying intelligence and evidence against them. I personally verified these documents that had already been destroyed, and they were invaluable. They contained a recent and last known pictures of individuals or wanted criminals that we no longer knew the whereabouts in Canada. They were also essentials as evidence in securing conviction should we locate those individuals. My colleague and I refused to comply with this illegal order. Management induced a more junior person to comply, whereupon I began to photograph and document what's being done because I needed to make sure that if something happened, we had proof that this was being done. At that point, management halted the process and only about 300 passports were destroyed. By defying our boss this way, my colleague and I became marked individual. A major campaign of retaliation against me and my colleague was initiated by management and the offending colleagues, with the sole aim of damaging us both professionally and personally, destroying us in the order to catch us at fault and justify a dismissal. By the end of 2015, I had been the victim of 8 years of extremely excessive psychological, physical, administrative harassment, abusive management in the workplace, and I had reached the psychological breaking point, and I suffered a bright psychological collapse. On February 16, when I didn't think things could get worse, I was summoned to a mandatory meeting without any support from my union. I was issued a letter requiring a medical evaluation in the presence of a director, a medical evaluation to see if I was fit to work, and I was strongly verbally encouraged by the issuing director to consider permanent long-term medical retirement. This administrative procedure was the employer's final phase towards me, and it was a major retaliatory measure on the part of the employer for the passport situation that we exposed and for also being an internal whistleblower. I departed on medical leave with PTSD, never to return to federal government, and my career had been destroyed. My life was ruined. Not too long after my departure, my colleague suffered the same fate and he resigned from the agency. Around 2017, the Bloc Québécois reviewed my file, and the MPs started asking questions about my case, including the local media. This infuriated CBSA management furthermore. Even though I was on medical leave since 2018, the CBSA administrative process of my medical pension with Health Canada was still subjected to more administrative delay until the members of the Bloc Québécois started asking questions. Only after I testified in Parliament for Bill C-290 in 2022 that my medical pension was processed. What I'd like to say is the extent to which institution will discredit employee places a doubt on the administrative procedural fairness, and it destroys the life and career of hardworking, loyal employees. Our government needs to make changes to protect workers at every level of society. It is essential that justice be done in a fair and partial process from bias. Public confidence is at lowest currently, and situations like mine are a testament to it. Hopefully, if Bill C-290 is accepted in the Senate of Canada, no other federal public servant should ever face the level of reprisal that I was subjected to. To this day, I have never received an apology or remedy from the federal government for the loss and destruction of my career. On a final note, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Center of Free Expression for this award. I am very honored and touched, but it's also an award for all the individuals that have been by my side from day one. My wife, my children, my family who have supported me during this difficult period, some of my work colleagues who remain loyal to me, my close friends and neighbors, members of the public who across Canada have personally written to me after they saw this story air in the public domain, the doctors who have provided me with great care and helped me overcome serious health issues and allowed me to continue this fight in the interest of the collective. And I also like to thank various individuals from Whistleblowing International Network, Whistleblowing Canada, the Government Accountability Project, Mr. Tom Devine, and most importantly, all the federal MPs and employees of the Bloc Québécois who have worked relentlessly, long hours to analyze all the evidence in my case and endorse and support Bill C-290 for all public servants across Canada. This was a milestone achievement in the interest of the Canadian public, our democracy. And again, I thank all of you, and I'm honored to receive this award. I thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Luc. We're the ones who are really honored to be able to recognize your courage and integrity in speaking up and representing the public interest in the face of incredible retaliation. And it is a crime in this country that there isn't adequate protection for those who do speak up in the public interest. And as you said, it's really important that we get better whistleblower protection legislation. And as you know, the International Bar Association study several years ago found that Canada's whistleblower protection legislation was the worst of any major country in the world. So a lot of work needs to be done, but tonight is your night, and we're just really delighted that we'll be able to share it with you and to give you this prize and the cash award that goes with it. I'd like to thank the audience for joining us and to draw to your attention that the recipient of the Peter Bryce Prize each year is a result of public nominations. So nominations are open now for a year from now. So if any of you become aware over the coming 6 to 9 months of people who should be nominated for this prize, you can go to the Center for Free Expression website, which is cfe.torontomu.ca. And if you search Peter Bryce Prize or click at the top where it says more and click on awards, it'll take you to a part of the website that is about the Peter Bryce Prize, where you can read about all the recipients since the prize was inaugurated, and you can see the nomination form where you could submit the name of someone who you think should be considered for next year's award. Again, that's cfe.torontomu.ca. But most of all, Luc, I just want to thank you. We're honored to be able to have you with us tonight. We're deeply moved, as I was, by your words, and it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you to the audience for joining us tonight. And we'll look forward to a successful resolution of what you're facing. I mean, as we said earlier, unlike previous winners, your situation, your case is continuing. And so I hope, David, I think you wanted to make a suggestion to the audience.
Yes, this award is different than the previous ones in the sense that our previous recipients have been cases that are basically done and dusted. You know, the process has run its course. The wrongdoing is mainly exposed, and the whistleblower has moved on, perhaps rebuilt their life. This is different because Luc is still in process. This case is only partly exposed. So I invite you to watch this space because there's more to come out. The wrongdoing you've heard about is only part of the story. And of course, we have to make sure that Luc does not suffer further reprisals. So we will be working with him. I fully expect to see more news on this story in the future.
So again, to the audience, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Good night, everyone.